Adrenal cancer is rare, and the symptoms aren't always obvious. I'm Jelena, a colorectal cancer survivor, and today I'm sitting down with my sister Janelle, who is an adrenal cancer survivor. She's going to share her story of the years of symptoms that were dismissed, her treatment, recurrence, and what life looks like for her now. We'll also talk about genetic testing, working during chemo, and advice that she has for other patients facing a cancer diagnosis. Okay. Now I'd like to welcome my sister Janelle to the channel.
Hello.
So to get started, let's just talk a little bit about who you were before your cancer diagnosis.
I was somebody who is fun, carefree, being single and then being married, with no kids. We just kind of had a good time. It was just kind of go with the flow. It was like wherever we wanted to go, whatever we wanted to do, we could just go and do it. And I also loved working out, going out and hiking, going out and doing physical activities because in North Carolina, there's so many beautiful places to go and look and see and just view the beautiful scenery, the mountains, the beach, all those kind of wonderful things.
All right. Yes. So a little bit of background for viewers that may not be familiar with the adrenal gland. Like, where is it? What is it? And what does it do?
So the adrenal gland is like a hat that sits on top of the kidney. So if the kidney is kind of like shaped like this, the adrenal gland sits right on top. And what it does is it produces the cortisol, produces aldosterone, and adrenaline. So my tumor was a cortisol producing tumor. And with a cortisol producing tumor, your cortisol actually reacts to stress. It helps with your stress response. So when you're really stressed out, it kicks in and it puts you in high mode. Or when everything's okay, it kind of keeps everything even keel, keeps your system okay. Metabolism, it does a lot with that, processing the fats and the proteins, your glucose levels, blood pressure, and also helps with inflammation. So when your cortisol is really high, your body has a lot of inflammation in it.
Mm-hmm. So similar to many other young people that have faced a cancer diagnosis, your symptoms, they were dismissed for years. So can you talk to us a little bit about the symptoms that you experienced?
So my symptoms actually started in 2013, and it started with an uptick in drinking water. I noticed I needed a lot more water. And you can even tell, like when I went to your house, I would get that big giant cup out of your out of your cabinet and like fill it up with water and just like carry it around with me like an emotional support animal. I would carry that thing around. I drank so much water. All I did all night was I would wake up and I would drink water, or I would wake up and go to the bathroom. And I thought, something's wrong. Like I can't even get a full night's sleep because I'm drinking, I'm peeing, I'm drinking, I'm peeing every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, whatever it may be. And so I could never, ever, ever get a full night's sleep. Another thing I noticed was that I could never lose weight. All my doctors told me, oh, you just need to lose a little bit of weight, like 5-10 pounds. And I would work out, eat right, started developing disordered eating. So I was only eating about 1 meal a day, and I was still continuing to gain weight. And I was like, there's something wrong here. And I remember after you got diagnosed, I was able to go get a colonoscopy. And everybody's like, oh yeah, as soon as you get the colonoscopy prep, you'll lose a ton of weight. And the scale didn't budge. And I was like, that seems a little weird. But, everybody kept dismissing me and telling me it was nothing. And I just thought, there's got to be something else. There has to be something else going on.
Yeah. So then what did the path to your diagnosis look like once you started experiencing those symptoms? How did those doctor visits and tests?
So my first endocrinologist appointment went okay. She seemed like she was a good doctor. And so she took a couple samples of blood and saliva and just kind of looked at things. And she said, it's all in your head. You're faking it. You just want attention. That's all you really want. All you have to do is just stop drinking water and you'll be fine. And I was like, if I could stop drinking water, don't you think I would already do this? Like, this is torturous, not being able to sleep a full night, having to wake up all the time, just drinking, constant water. I was like, I'm not faking this. So they sent me to a second endocrinologist, and she performed the same tests. She also did a 24-hour urine cortisol, which involves a big giant jug, like the Go Lightly jug.
Oh, yes. My CRC people are familiar with
Yes.
the giant Golightly jug.
Yes, it's about this big, and for 24 hours you have to pee in this jug. And then you take it to the lab and they analyze it. And I remember I was maybe 12 hours in and the jug was already full.
Oh, man.
Yes. And then I had another thing where I had to wake up. I had to take one first thing in the morning, middle of the day, and then right in the middle of the night, I would take a saliva sample in like a Q-tip, and then I would put it in this little like bag and seal it, and then I would drop it off to the lab again as well. So
what were they looking for with the urine and saliva tests?
They were looking to see how high my cortisol was, if it like peaked during the day or if it dropped off, or like they were just kind of looking for a general level of where I was at.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Then how did you end up getting to your adrenal cancer diagnosis?
Oh, so I did visit a third endocrinologist, and he walked in the room and he opened up my chart and he goes, "Get off your birth control. I'll see you in 8 weeks." Mind you, I had waited 6 weeks for that appointment. I was like, if you would have looked at my chart, you could have just said, "Hey, let's bump you back 2 weeks and then we'll see what it looks like. You know, get off your birth control. We'll see you in 8 weeks." No, he just walked in 3 seconds and he was like, "The nurse will come get you. We're done." So yeah, so then in 2021, I came out to visit you. And as soon as I came back, I started having problems. Like I had a bladder infection. And so I went to my doctor and he gave me a dose of antibiotics, and like a good patient, and like everyone should do, take all your antibiotics, the full dose, the full course. And as soon as I finished that, about 3 days later, I got a UTI. So again, I went on and I had a teledoc visit, and they just went ahead and prescribed a stronger antibiotic. Well, 3 days after those ran out, it happened again. And so I went back to my doctor because he wanted another urine sample to see if everything was still, if it was still bacteria in the urine or not. And he goes, "No, there's no bacteria in your urine, so stop taking your antibiotics. We think you have something called cystitis." And cystitis is kind of like a UTI. It feels like a UTI, but there's no bacteria in your urine, and it's all controlled by stress. So the lower your stress level is, the less flare-ups you'll have with cystitis. And it wasn't till about 3 weeks after I started the medicine for the cystitis is when I woke up one morning and I had a whole lot of pain. And it was between, right just above my hip area. And I was getting ready for work and I thought, ooh, maybe I like pulled a muscle working out. Maybe there was something I did yesterday in my workout that I didn't normally do. And I'll just keep getting ready. Things will get better. And I was getting ready for work and the pain got worse and worse and worse. And finally I was like, I think I need to go to urgent care. So I get in the car. It's about 5 miles down the road from my house. And I had to pull over and stop because I was in so much pain. And I had to get out of the car and just sit there and just like, just kind of, I wanted to scream, but I knew if I screamed in the middle of a gas station, it was probably not a good idea. So I was like, let me just take a deep breath and just let it out. And then went back on my way to the urgent care. I get to the urgent care and I walk in there and they scan my ID and my insurance card. And by that time, I don't know if you've ever been in so much pain where you start shaking. Yes, I was there. I was at that point where I started shaking. So I'm handing her my card and my hand's shaking like this. And she's like, "Oh my God, okay." She grabs my stuff. And by the time they even scanned my ID and my insurance card in, they were like, come on back. You need to come back right now." So the doctor got me and felt around and they were like, "Well, we don't have scanning equipment at this location. So we have to send you 20 miles up the road to the emergency room that has a hospital attached to it, and they can scan you there." And I was like, okay. And they were like, "We'll call and let them know you're on the way." And I'm like, "Well, you need to call them and tell them I'm going to need some time because I can't drive right now." I was in so much pain at that point. There was no way I was able to drive. So I walked out of the urgent care. I called my husband. He comes speeding from work and he throws me back in the back of his truck and he's like, "Here we go." And he runs me to the emergency room and drops me off. And luckily there was only like one person in front of me in the line. So I got in fairly quick. And by that point, I was in so much pain, I could almost like not talk. It hurt so bad. And so the only comfortable positions was laying or standing up and walking. And I was like, there's no way I'm laying on an emergency room floor. No.
No.
So it's like, so I was walking around in like circles, like, and just kept walking. And then I got really nauseated and I was like, oh no, girl, we are not puking in the ER. No, ma'am. So thank goodness, as soon as I was like, doing my deep breathing and I was trying to relax, they called me back. They did a couple of exams first to see, what was going on, because I was having trouble talking at that point. I was in so much pain. And so once they pulled up my chart and saw the UTI, the bladder infection, the cystitis diagnosis, they were like, oh, okay. So they immediately started pain medicine and they said, we're going to take you back for a CT with no contrast just to see if there's anything going on there. So they wheel me back to the CT and get in, do my CT scan. About 45 minutes later, the doctor comes back in and she goes, well, found out where the pain's coming from. And she goes, first thing, you have a kidney stone and that's why you're in so much pain. And she's like, it's down your ureter, almost to your bladder. So it should pass shortly. It should pass within the next few days. And also we found a 4-centimeter mass on your adrenal gland. And you might want to message your primary care physician. And so I was like, kind of doped up on drugs. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I get in the truck to go home and I tell Ken that, my husband, and he goes, maybe why don't you go ahead and message your doctor while we're on the ride home? And I was like, okay. So I just messaged my doctor and I said, hey, this is what's going on. This is what they found. They told me to follow up with you. What do we need to do next? And I think that was around lunchtime. And about an hour later, I get a message back and he says, I'm sending it to the head of endocrinology at the hospital. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I was like, he and I have a very good rapport. And that was the one thing that, I was like, okay, maybe he's looking out for me because he knows what I've been going through with the 3 endocrinologists that have dismissed me. And he just wants to make sure the best of the best see what I have going on.
Yeah.
And then I took 2 days off because I was like, I don't want to pass a kidney stone at work because this happened on a Wednesday. And I was like, I'm going to take Thursday and Friday off and work from home. Just because I don't want to pass a kidney stone at work because I've heard they're very painful to pass. And I was like, I don't want to do that there. So I stayed home and on Friday, I got a phone call from a random number. And just like everybody else on the planet, when you get a random phone call from a random number, you never pick it up. But for some reason, something inside me said, pick it up. Pick it up. And so I pick up the phone and it's my primary care doctor. And he goes, hey, how are you? How you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm okay. And he's like, I was like, you're not calling from the office? And he said, I'm actually calling from my Google phone number. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, I'm off today, but I wanted to call you. And I was like, I'm rationalizing in my head. I'm rationalizing like, oh, we have a good doctor-patient rapport. He just wants to talk to me in person rather than, through a impersonal, message through the charting system. And I was like, okay, yeah, absolutely. And I said, what's going on? And he said, so the head of endocrinology and myself are about 99% sure that you have something called adrenal cortical carcinoma. And I just sat there for a second and I was like, excuse me, what? And he said, yeah, we're pretty sure you have cancer. And I said, okay, hold on a second. I need things to write with. I need to write this down. So I'm furiously running around the house, grabbing a pen and a pad of paper. And so I'm writing the name of the cancer down. And he's like, listen, whatever you do, don't Google it. Please don't Google it. And I was like, okay. And, so we talked about it. And he said, this is my Google number. You call me anytime you have any questions, anything you can't understand. But I want you to know that there's going to be a lot of testing ahead. You're going to get a lot of blood work done. We're going to have to do some genetic testing. There's going to be some more detailed scans that we're going to need to do from you. So just be prepared that it's going to be a lot all at once. And I'm really grateful to him that he did that he let me know, because it was extremely overwhelming to go from, oh, everything's fine, everything's okay, and then going, okay, now we need 8 vials of blood. Now we need a CT scan with contrast. And now we need to meet up with a surgeon and we need to figure out who's doing the operation. We need to figure out who your endocrinologist is going to be and all of these things. So it was just so much information coming at me at once when I got diagnosed.
Yeah. So then from diagnosis to figuring out like the staging of it, what kind of tests did they do to kind of pinpoint more exactly what kind of adrenal cancer and staging it was?
So when I went to the surgeon, I was like, I am not leaving until somebody says that something is wrong. So I printed out all my old test results from all the 3 endocrinologists that had run blood work and everything like that. And I printed them out and I brought them to the surgeon and I was like thinking to myself, going in there full guns blazing, like, this man is going to believe me and I'm not walking out until somebody tells me so. So I walked in with all this information and he was the most kind, sweet, caring man. And he looks at everything and he goes, oh, let me take a look. And so he looks at my test results and we're looking at them together and he goes, oh yeah, that right there, that was adrenal cancer. And I was like, that was taken in 2015. It is now 2021. So once he saw the results and he said, okay, we're going to do a CT scan with contrast. I want you to be aware that there's a possibility that you could lose your kidney, your spleen, and part of your colon because we don't know how far it's stretched down. So just be prepared for that. But once we get the CT scan back with contrast, we'll have a definite detail of what's going on. And so I said, well, do you know what stage I am? And he's like, we can't stage until we remove it from your body.
Wow.
Yeah, they can't. So an adrenal tumor is like a pimple in gross terms. Let's just put it grossly. If you pop an adrenal tumor, it's just like a pimple and it bursts and then it puts cancer all through your abdomen. So like if you, so they want to remove it all whole. And if they do just laparoscopic or biopsy it, that can lead to the tumor just rupturing and pouring cancer all into your abdominal cavities, which is not good. So that's one thing you don't want to do. So it wasn't until I had the operation where they removed my kidney and my adrenal gland. Once they got it out, there's one lab in Minnesota that does all of the adrenal stuff. So they sent it off to Minnesota, and about 3 weeks later, I got the information back, and they staged it as stage 3 adrenal cancer.
So you kind of already hinted that surgery was part of your treatment. So what did the full treatment plan look like?
So the first step was obviously surgery to remove the tumor. So they did an open procedure on me. So they opened me up from my sternum down to about my hip bone and just a straight line down. And they removed the tumor and the kidney and the adrenal gland. And then they also took out the ureter, which is the tube that leads from your kidney to your bladder. They took that out as well. And then they had to do some vein and vessel patching before they patched me up. So originally they thought the time was going to be about 5 hours, and it ended up being a 6-hour surgery.
Okay, that sounds about familiar. So then after surgery, what did the rest of your treatment plan look like? What was the initial plan that the doctor said?
So once we did our follow-up, they decided that they originally thought it was stage 2, looking at the images. But once they got in there, then they saw how close it was to the inferior vena cava, which is the main vein that brings blood back to the heart. They thought, it's a little bit too close for comfort, so we want to go ahead and put you on oral chemo. And the oral chemo is called mitotane. And so they would be putting me on that, as well as having blood work and scans every 3 months.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And were there like rounds of the oral chemo, a certain amount of time that you were doing it for?
So it is twice a day, every day for, we don't know because there is no research available. So that's one of the things, the textbook kind of standard is 5 years. But I have had some people that I have met on the internet that have gone for 7 years on it. I have had some people that go 3 years on it. It really just depends. There's just not a lot of research out there for us to determine a final amount.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's daily for years.
Yes.
It's not rounds like in other ones, or maybe like 2 weeks on, a week off kind of thing.
No, every day, twice a day. Now for going on over 4 years now I've been doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, every day, twice a day.
So what are some of the major side effects from treatment that you're experiencing?
Nausea, nausea, nausea. It never ends. I am nauseated probably 23 of the 24 hours of the day. Certain smells really trigger it. It just doesn't, no rhyme or reason as to why. Like one food will be good one week and the next week I'm like, oh God, that smells so terrible. And I'll have to open all the windows in the house. So nausea, diarrhea, exhaustion, easily bruising. And then I'm also very, very sensitive to temperatures. So like in very hot temperatures, I can't like acclimate to it. So unless I'm somewhere near like a pool where I can jump in, and then in the wintertime, I need to make sure that I'm fully bundled up. And I may look stupid, but I'm way more bundled up than everybody else, but it's because my body just for some reason cannot regulate temperature.
So what does the mitotane, what is that doing in you?
So mitotane was a pesticide, part of a pesticide called DDT, and it was outlawed in the 70s here in the United States. And the reason they chose it for adrenal cancer is because they noticed that the people that were spraying DDT were coming down with adrenal issues and liver issues. So what the mitotane does is it shuts down your remaining adrenal gland and it stops the cancer from flowing throughout your system. So it kills it off, but there is a chance that they can wake up after the 5 years or however many years, but there are people who end up being steroid dependent for their entire life.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So taking steroids daily is another side effect.
Yes. So because it shuts that down, you actually do need cortisol, you do need aldosterone, and you do need adrenaline in your body to stay alive. Mm-hmm. So to supplement that, because the mitotane is killing it off, you have to take steroids. So for example, when you have, let's say, poison ivy, and you get that little package of the steroids, where you have to take 7 pills in one day, 6 the next, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You're taking 7 milligrams your first day. For me, every day, I take 70 milligrams.
Wow.
Yes, to keep my body going. And even still then, sometimes it's not even enough. There are times where we have what's called a stress dose. So for example, if you are in a really stressful, like a car accident or something like that, you may need extra steroids because your body went into that fight or flight response. And it's like, and it's using all the steroids that you've supplemented with. So you'll need more. Or if you're sick and you have a fever, you need to up your steroids. So yeah, that's one thing, and then with the steroids, you gain a lot of weight. I have gained 40 pounds since I started this. My face is enormous. Like I look like a little chipmunk with my little cheeks, So it's another thing that you have to deal with is like a complete body change because you're on so many steroids to stay alive that that's another thing you have to deal with is like, oh my gosh, my body has changed so much. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that comes along with the steroids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How has having one kidney changed your life? And do you have any restrictions now that you're down a kidney?
As far as I know, they did not tell me anything to change in my diet because my diet was pretty good to begin with. But the comforting thing is my father-in-law was in a car accident back in the 70s and he lost his kidney. So when I found out I was losing my kidney, I was in a panic because I was like, I have no idea what to expect from here on out. What do I do? Like, how are things going to go? So he called me up and he really comforted me and was like, look, I lost my kidney in the 70s. I am pretty sure technology, medically wise, has come forward a little bit. So you losing your kidney is not going to be a huge deal. He's like, the only thing you'll notice is you need to pee a whole lot more. And that is 100% true. Like when I go on a road trip, it used to be I could hold it all the way on the road trip. And now I'm like, I need to pee. I gotta go pee. Can I pee again? And I drank a lot of water beforehand, so that wasn't really a big difference in my life. I still drink the same amount of water. I do watch my salt intake just to be sure. But there are some times where you're so nauseated, the only thing you want is like something really salty, some salty French fries or something like that. Mm-hmm. So you can't really avoid it, but you kind of just have to balance that out. Sometimes, you eat the salty thing, but the next day you're good on your salt intake.
Yeah. Are there any other kind of restrictions, like any medications you can't take, and things like that, because you only have one kidney now?
I can't take ibuprofen anymore, so I have to take acetaminophen for anything. But other than that, I have not heard of any other medical restrictions or medication restrictions due to the one kidney other than the ibuprofen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what did your follow-up schedule look like after your surgery to monitor you for recurrence?
So at first it was every 3 months, blood work, abdominal CT, and chest CT.
Okay.
And then once I was clear for a year, they bumped it back to every 6 months. And then at that point, I had a little trouble with my insurance, and they only allowed the abdominal CT, and they skipped a CT scan for my chest. And the time after that, they approved both, and that's when they found the 3 nodules on my lungs.
Oh, man. So then what did they do once they found those?
They took me to a pulmonologist, and I did a couple breathing tests in this little like clear tube, and it's really hard to do because you're in the clear tube, you're looking at the person, that's running the test, and you have this giant paper clip over your nose, and you're like, oh my gosh, I look like a doofus. So I don't think it came out as good as it probably could have, but I was like, it is what it is. Like, I look like a doofus, I'm not doing this again.
So you were inside of a tube, like
Yes.
Katniss in the Hunger Games, getting ready to go up?
Yes, that's what it looked like. Yeah, it had a little door.
Okay.
And then you went inside, they shut the door, and they had a little microphone that came inside, and they told you what to do.
Okay.
As far as the breathing. Yes. And so you did like a long inhale, a very hard exhale, inhale, a couple of like short inhales, and then exhale, kind of like that. So they had a couple different breathing exercises they had you do in the tube. But yeah, I just kind of felt like a dork with that little clothespin on my nose. So I giggled a lot. So I probably didn't do very good, but that's okay.
So then what did they decide to do with the nodules?
So they looked at the nodules, the pulmonologist looked at them, and he said, well, I would like to take it to the tumor board because I'm not 100% sure on what kind of approach we would like to take. He's like, but you're young and you're healthy-ish, I guess.
Yeah. As healthy as one can be on chemo.
Yes. So what we want to go as aggressive as possible. So they took it to the tumor board, and the surgeon that was picking up my case, he goes, I can get all 3. I can get it.
And the tumor board is like a group of doctors like at that facility that discuss.
Yes, that all deal with just lung issues.
Okay.
And they look at your scans, and they all just kind of sit around and talk about it, like kind of just a brainstorming session almost, if you would say. And just kind of brainstorm ideas of like looking at it and what they would do. Like, they just basically say, this is a 41-year-old female, adrenal cortical carcinoma, stage 3. We found these 3 nodules on her lungs. Go, and they just kind of come up with ideas. And what they came up with was there's a robotic surgery that is called the Da Vinci robotic surgery. And I don't know if you've ever seen this on YouTube where they cut the grape, just the skin of the grape, and then they sew it back together with the robot. That is what I had. So they deflate my lung so it's flat, look for the lumps, and then they just take like a pie sliced wedge, cut it, pull it out, and then stitch it up. Okay. And that's what they did.
How long was that surgery?
45 minutes. It actually took me longer to get anesthetized and out of anesthesia than it did for the actual surgery.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's and then you weren't in the hospital for very long, because I came to help out after you had the surgery to visit, and we were out walking in the park. I was shocked because it was still only a couple of days after.
Yes. So I stayed in the hospital for 3 days because they have to wait for your lung to reinflate. And so I had a chest tube in my side to help reinflate the lung. And then after maybe about the second day, they went ahead and pulled the tube out, and they allowed me to walk around a little bit. And it was just kind of a shocking moment because it was like before I went into surgery, I was totally fine. I could walk around no problem. And now it was like I took one circle around the nurse's station. I was like, I'm like, whoa, what is this? This is crazy. I'm not used to this. So it did. And then I didn't feel comfortable going home after the second day, you know, when they took the tube out, because they wanted me to go home that day. And I was like, I don't really feel comfortable, because after the first surgery, I did have some complications. And I was like, I don't want to leave and then have to come back. So I was like, let's just stay one more night just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, everything looked fine. And they were like, I felt more confident that I could go home.
Because you also don't live like right around the corner from the hospital.
No.
It was a bit of a drive for you.
Yes. So the hospital is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I live in a suburb about 45 minutes away from Charlotte. So it is quite a hike to go down there. So when you go, you make sure you go because you have to go, not because you just like, oh, let's just, stop by, whatever, Yeah, you don't want to do that, no.
We had a lot to say. I had a lot of questions, and my sister had a lot of answers during this interview. So I'm going to divide this into 2 parts. So in the meantime, while you're waiting for part 2, if you want to check out some of my other interviews with other cancer survivors, you can check those out up here. I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.